Yo, what is up, guys? Today we're talking about Fu and how he could potentially be in Xenoverse 3. Before we get started, make sure guys hit the like button, subscribe, and of course. Now, Fu for this last DLC is making his last and final attempt to be our character in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, which is very interesting. Something that that has been building up for basically 20 years now, basically. To where Fu is, finally has his ace in the hole. He's gonna mind control multiple people. He's gonna come up with this thing, and he's gonna, maybe even try to power himself up. That's basically the rumors. And if you guys even watched Dragon Ball Heroes, he actually did that and took on 2 new transformations. So even though that in the official trailer only says we'll get 1 new character, I believe that we might get another variation of Fu to where he's transformed, but they're probably not going to reveal that, right? So, that's that. Another theory that I have for the end of Xenoverse 2 and how Fu is going to connect with Xenoverse 3 is because, he honestly might be a good guy, alright? I think that Demigra is going to come back into the story. Demigra is going to come back in the story after we beat Fu. He's going to come back in the story. He's going to take over his sword because his sword has some type of mystical powers. If you guys don't know already, man, Fu's sword is some type of mystical, futuristic, time-traveling thing. It's almost like it's a being inside his sword, okay? Because the sword teleported to him kinetically right before we defeated him. And that's how he got his sword back, because the sword automatically did it. So I think that either Demigra or Toa or Mira is inside the sword, and he's harnessing his power, right? I think he possibly could be Demigra, though. I think that after we beat Fu, they're gonna make it relatively easy, Once we get to the end of the story, they're gonna make it relatively easy. We're gonna beat Fu, and then it's gonna be like, wait a minute, why is his sword cracking? And then Deborah's gonna come out, right? And then once Deborah comes out, he's gonna be super powerful. He's gonna probably absorb Fu. And then after we beat Demigra, then Fu comes out of that transformation state, and he goes on to be a good guy, right? He goes on to be a good guy. But I could even say this. I could even have another theory and say the opposite, to where we lose the fight, and Demigra beats Fu, or Demigra comes out and he helps Fu in some type of way, and basically the only way to save the universe is if we destroy the time nest, if we completely erase everything with the time patrollers, and we basically only leave one person alive, which is Bulma, aka the newest character that we see in the new trailer. So after we reset the entire timeline because of the crystals cracking and the whole multiverse falling apart, the only person that we leave this ultrasonic technology to would be Bulma, and then we're relying on Bulma to respread the word and basically like restart the timeline again, right? But Bulma has seen everything, what I'm saying? Like Trunks and Bulma, they've seen everything, so they're probably gonna be the only 2 people left, right? Something easy like that. Do I think that RCAC is gonna die? Absolutely. I think that everyone's gonna die except for Trunks and Bulma. And that makes sense to the new timeline because it might be future villains, it might be future things. So Trunks, especially our time controller Trunks, who has seen everything, right? He's seen basically everything. He knows there's gonna be some other Fu kid, gonna come out there and destroy everything. So why not Trunks, time controller Trunks, freaking controlling the multiverse, and then making his mom basically the second Supreme Kai, or Elder Kai, right? To govern over the new time patrollers and over the new system. So that's my predictions about it, man. That's my basic theory and predictions of how Fu is going to survive. Now, how I think this whole thing is gonna come down. Obviously, I think that everyone needs to go. Our CSCs are cooked. Our Trunks is gonna die. Our past Xenoverse 1 CAC is going to get cooked. I think that the entire timeline of Time Nest is either going to get completely restarted or completely just cooked. In general, the entire multiverse is just done, which is not too far-fetched, you know. So the entire universe is done. Everything is cooked. Everything, you know, the entire multiverse is erased somehow between this last fight, and there's only maybe a couple people alive. I highly doubt it will be our CAC, because if it was our CAC, we definitely would have seen, you know, people and other things like that. So, will there still be a villain that we're going out to fight? I think that Fu will be a good guy. Fu will either be a good guy, or Fu will be absorbed by Demigral at the end of it. And it'll be like a merged Demigral Fu type situation, to where even though the entire multiverse is erased, Fu is still there to be our adversary in Xenoverse 3, which is highly Fu is highly unlikely to be there in Xenoverse 3. We've been fighting this guy for 10 years. Like, how many more years can you fight this guy? For 2 decades? Like, they need to introduce another villain. But at the same time, they could easily make Fu the good guy at the end of it, and change of heart and things like that. And maybe he could be the protector of time instead of Time Trunks, what, you know, being the Supreme Kai. Maybe after defeating Demigral, he realizes this isn't good. I'm just gonna, you know, I have to lead the new timeline in a good way. You know what I'm saying? So Fu can basically easily do that, and Fu can freaking be a good guy, and he can go around and, you know, just be this big buff guy and just control the timeline and be a good guy and fix all the errors, right? Because Fu's been realizing that no matter what, the good side always wins. No matter how much he powers himself up, and what he's doing is wrong. Like Fu literally admitted in the last cutscene, he was just like, I don't want you to get hurt. So he doesn't want our CACs to die. He does not want us to die. There is something that Fu is protecting us from, and it's probably his father, Demigral, right? And, you know, since the multiverse is going to get erased, I think that Fu could easily be the one who survives, and maybe even the only one who survives. And maybe he makes a copy timeline where he's just like, okay, since I'm Supreme Kai now, I'll make a copy timeline of this original timeline, thus making Bulma purple, and thus making other characters look different, because it is a copy analyzation of the timeline that we previously knew, thus making lots of characters a lot different than what we were used to. That means that it could be Xeno Goku. That means that it could be Grand Priest Goku. That means that it could be like Whis, Twin Whis. That means it could be like Orange Piccolo in base form. You know what I mean? Like that, like basically, like the realities are just infinite when it comes to this, because it can basically become like a friend game or whatever, or like not a friend game, but like a wishful thinking type of game, like a Heroes. You know, you can transform, do whatever you want. But yeah, guys, it's basically my theory about food and how it will live on. Leave a comment down below what you guys think. It's been your boy. I'm out.